Hi everybody, I'm Glenn Olson, Public Works Director from City of Marshall. If you haven't signed in, make sure you sign the sign-in sheet that lets us know that you're here. If you're all here, or partially here, just sign in. What we have for tonight is a public informational meeting that's intended to try to get as much information from you as we give to you. So we have kind of a program that we're going to talk about and what the project is all about. We'll talk a little bit about special assessments, but what we want to have is a discussion of, have we missed anything? Is there something that you want to do that we don't show? Like some people, when we do a major reconstruction like this, they want to widen their driveway, for instance, or you have a walk up from the sidewalk to your car. We want to talk about things like that. But this informational meeting is just that. It's for information. It's not, everything is not set in stone at this time. So before we get started, we'll have the group up here introduce themselves. Jason, if you want to start.
My name is Jason Anderson. I'm the Assistant City Engineer for the City.
Can you guys talk louder? Can you speak louder? We
Sure.
cannot hear you.
Yeah, my name is Jason Anderson. I'm the Assistant City Engineer for the City of Marshall.
Jeff Larson, Water Operations Manager for MMU.
Bob Van Norm, the wastewater superintendent for the City of Marshall.
Kim Jurgensen from the Senior Engineering Specialist for the city.
Go to the next.
Jeff
Okay.
Stelter, Engineering Specialist.
Again, thank you for all coming. This is an overview. What I'll go through is I'll go through the slides that we have, then we'll ask for questions and we'll try to answer them. And if you don't want to ask questions during the meeting, we'll be here after the meeting too. You can come up and ask any specific questions about the design. Those are the two areas that's included under this one project. South Bend and Marguerite Avenue, from Camden Drive to Southview Drive. And it does entail full reconstruction of all the utilities and the street, curb and gutter, sidewalks, driveways within the right-of-way. So it's total reconstruction. It will be bid as one project with one contractor, and of course, the one contractor will have several subcontractors working on the job too. So, but there'll be one contractor that is responsible for the project. Okay, next one. This is just the location map. We've seen that. Next one. What we've got here is we've got two sets of maps for each street. One that's called the removals. So everything that you see crosshatched on this screen is going to be removed. And essentially it's everything. The street, curb and gutter, you can see the sidewalks crosshatched, the driveways, water, sewer, and storm sewer. Yes.
Folks back here cannot hear you, even when the fan turns on. Please.
Okay. I can move around a little bit. So, and get as, I don't mind talking loud. Okay, so the project is the total reconstruction of both of those streets. And you can see here the removal sheet. So if anyone afterwards has any questions, we have placed the addresses on the maps themselves too. So if you know your address, you can explain where it is and we can go to that address on the map. I think that helps out a lot when we're talking about a specific lot or a specific property. Next one. This one, on Marguerite, we have two separate sections. It's just a little bit longer than South Bend. So Marguerite takes two sections. It's all the same information though. It's the removals and the addresses for each of you. Next one. That's the other half of Marguerite for the removals. Next one. Okay, these are the installations that the contractor will do, and generally the deepest utility gets replaced first. So whether that's sanitary sewer, water, or storm sewer, those are the three major utilities that are being replaced. And generally the deepest one gets done first. And they don't replace them all at the same time. So what you'll have is you'll have the street closed, and then the contractor will come in and take out the surfacing, and then he'll dig down and take out, let's say, what's the deepest, Kim?
Looks like water main.
Okay. The water main then would be replaced and backfilled and brought up to grade, and maybe even, depending upon the weather, maybe even some temporary gravel put in. And then if it's the same subcontractor that will do the next, let's say the next is the sanitary sewer, they will come in and do that and fill it back in again. And then they will take out the storm sewer and replace that and fill that back in again. So then they'll bring it up to, we call it up to grade, so that the grade then is substantially below the curb line, because then they'll start packing it in, well, the street itself, and then putting gravel on. And the street will be gravel until we place the asphalt on it. And that'll be a separate subcontractor. It'll either be someone like Dunnick's, who's located here in town, or it could be from a different operation. But the process will be that most likely you'll have gravel for a period of time before the asphalt gets put down. Then what we like to see is the asphalt layers put down, all except for the top layer. And depending upon, and you guys help me out here, depending upon the timing of the project, we like to see the last lift of asphalt go in the following year. Okay? That's what we like to see, because there might be some settlement, and usually there is. When you're digging utilities in the ground, you bring it up, you dig again, you bring it up, and even though you compact it, you have some time of settlement. So if in fact there's settlement over the winter, then you fill in that settlement, and then you put the last layer of asphalt on, so that you have a nice smooth ride with no dips. That's the theory behind the project, that's how it'll be. Now, if it does go that way, and we hold that last lift of asphalt until the following year, following spring, there's always that lip. The street department doesn't like us very well for doing things like that, because when they do snow removal, they're always grating against that curb and gutter concrete edge that's typically about this tall. It also has a little bit of a problem when there's drainage and the water comes down to the catch basins and sits there by the catch basin. There's a couple things we can do to help alleviate some of that, but until that final lift of asphalt is put on, there may be some ponding of water. Okay, so you can see the different colors. You've got green lines, which is sanitary sewer, and you can see those. Jason, could you grab the little the pointer? Just go ahead and do it. The service lines, I don't know what type of material your sanitary sewer service lines are made of. It could be anything in this age of property from, do they have any of the?
There'll be some orange.
Orangeburg, it's called, which is asphalt impregnated cardboard. Okay, it was used for some time because it was very inexpensive. It was very inexpensive and worked mostly. But after a few years, it deteriorates, and especially if you've had some sewer issues and you've ever tried to roto-root out the Orangeburg is so soft, the roto-rooter goes right through the side of the pipe. And while they might get the project done on the short term, if you have that kind of pipe, you're going to have problems all the time. Okay? So then it was cast iron, clay tile, and most recently plastic. So some people have replaced some of their line, and if you know you have replaced your service line with plastic, let us know. Because you are responsible for the cost of that service line from the main to your property line. And if it's Orangeburg, we strongly recommend that you replace it all the way to the house, but it's 100% completely up to you, where we quit to the house. But it might be the time to do it. And generally, you can work with our contractor and our inspection crew to line it up to do it, but you have to pay for that piece past the right-of-way line, make arrangements with the contractor for payment. Sometimes we have people that have a good friend that's a contractor that they would rather have somebody else do it. Okay? So you can do that too, but not until our contractor is done with it and out of there. Okay? So if it's a coordination of contractors, we want to know that that's what you would like to do. Okay? If you don't want the contractor that is the low bidder to the project. So the water lines, let me go back to the sanitary sewer lines again. The sanitary sewer mains are paid for 100% through your wastewater billing. Bob Van Moore is responsible for telling us, they televise the mains, the condition of the mains, the reason that they have to be replaced, the manholes that are involved. The city takes care of that cost, and that's included in your regular monthly sanitary sewer bill. That will not go up because of this project. Okay? Water is real similar to that, in that except they go one step further. The water main replacement on the entire job is paid for by MMU, which is included in your regular water bills. Okay? And not only do they replace the water main, they replace your service line up to and including your curb stop. From the curb stop in is your responsibility. So if you have lead lines, or if you've had problems with your water pressure inside your house because of corrosion or any other thing, that would be your responsibility to take it from the curb stop into the house. So that is 100% paid for by them. Storm sewer. All of the storm sewer main, catch basins, manholes, leads, those types of things that are involved with the storm sewer are paid through your storm water utility billing that you get. Now, if there are any other connections, we do not recommend storm sewer connections to the tile line, but if there are any other private installations for stormwater, sump pumps, things like that, that is the homeowner's responsibility. Any other comment on just the sump pump connections? Okay. So that's the three major utilities we're talking about. They're covered by others included in your regular billings, and they will not be included on special assessments. We'll go through the special assessment sheet separately, but I want to kind of explain how that is, and whether you're on Marguerite or South Bend, the procedure is exactly the same. Now, you are responsible for a special assessment for a street reconstruction project for the street, curb and gutter, sidewalk replacement, those things that I just mentioned, other than your driveway and other than private individual walk-ups from the sidewalk to the curb that you want or don't want, okay? All of those things I just mentioned are shared. 50% city taxes, we call it ad valorem, and 50% assessed, okay? So the street cost, we also include in the utility costs the street above them. So in this case, where there's 3 other utilities, and they pay for a section of the roadway above their utilities, because if they were going to replace them themselves, each one at a time, they would be responsible for that removal and replacement. And so the street costs associated with those utilities above them are 100% theirs as well. So that cost is subtracted from the total street cost. So it's street, curb and gutter, sidewalk, minus the street for the water, the street for the sewer, the street for the storm sewer. And then whatever is left is shared 50-50 by citywide taxes and special assessments. That's how that goes for participation. So usually the local participation by assessments is somewhere around 20% of the project cost. So about 80% is normally paid for by others. Let me stop on the assessment part, because we're going to do a separate thing on the special assessment. So the project plans are essentially complete. How many of you have private walk-ups from the sidewalk to the street? I think we show them on our plans, but if you have them, we're going to ask you, yeah, if you want them. If you want them replaced, you can have them replaced, but they will not be assessed to the other property owners. They'll be just to you. And you might have one that's only this wide, and you want it to be wide enough for a wheelchair or something like that. We would like to know exactly what you want. We can either remove it and replace it, just remove it, make it wider, make it narrower. That will be specifically up to you, not your neighbors.
Okay.
Yes.
That's if you're going to have it come from the street to your house.
From the street to the sidewalk. Okay, so there's some of the property owners have a little piece that goes from the sidewalk to the curb.
And I don't know.
Okay,
How do you know? What do you do if you don't know?
We will, if you have your address, we can tell you if we've got it shown on our plans. Okay? All right. Jeff, want to mention anything?
No, maybe mention the same, this sort of with widening of driveways, if that's.
Okay. Yes, if anyone wishes to widen their driveway, now is the time to do that as well. We can work with you on widening the driveway up to the right-of-way line. So up to where you show, we show the length of the sanitary sewer service line connection. That's about as far as we can come, but we can widen it or change the configuration next to the curb for bigger. Some people don't have a little slope that goes from the main part of the driveway to the curb, and when you get down there and you turn the corner, your wheel goes outside your driveway, and you'd like to have that filled in. So anything you'd like to do on the right-of-way that is with your driveway, we can work with any of you on that, understanding that that's 100% your cost. We can just have it done under our contract prices, and it can be placed on your special assessments where you can pay it over time. You can pay it immediately this fall, for instance, when it gets certified, or even before it gets certified, you can pay it all. Or you can put it on 8 years worth of payments at a very reasonable interest rate. I'm getting into more of the special assessment process, but that's important for people to know. Our interest rate for charging for special assessments is 2% above our last bonding rate. So generally, right now, it's about 4.5%. Okay?
Is it fixed?
It is fixed. Yeah, it is fixed. But I can't give you the exact amount. There'll be an entirely separate process for just the special assessment portion of the project. There'll be a hearing, you'll get notifications with dollar amounts on them, and you'll be invited to a public hearing to discuss those. But we want to make sure that you understand what's being assessed and how it's being assessed before you get your dollar amount. I'm going to continue on, I might as well. The maximum special assessment for residential properties in Marshall is $5,500 for the public improvements. It does not include your driveways or that sanitary sewer service line running from the main to the right-of-way. So that could be over and above that. But we have had many instances where our assessment does not equal $5,500 for the public construction work. It all depends upon what's done, how big the assessment area is. There's lots of factors, but it's limited to that amount for an 8-year period of time. So we'll get into that just a little bit more for assessments, and I know that's an important part. Yes?
If we really don't know for sure what we want,
Uh-huh.
can somebody come over and work with us on that?
Yes, we can. And as
Because
Mayor,
I have no clue.
yes, and we can tell you what the plan is going to plan to do, and then we can talk to you specifically about your driveway or your drainage or things like that. We would like to know from you. Maybe this is a bad time to ask, being the curbs maybe aren't cleared yet right to the curb line of snow and ice. But if there are drainage problems when there is no snow and ice in the curb, if you do have water in the end of your driveway, if it's a stinky mess because it sits there stagnant during the summer, if you have those conditions, we want to talk to you about that. Jason, go ahead, Jeff.
Like Glenn had mentioned about the Orangeburg service lines on the sewer. Similar to that on the water side, lead service lines, a lot of people sometimes want to get rid of those. I suspect you all have copper with the age of the neighborhood. But if you don't know, give us a call. It takes us a minute to go downstairs and verify what it is. So.
Yeah. Jason, do you want to mention something about the street grades? Here, just a minute.
Sure, I think the only thing I would mention about the street,
Talk loud over there.
Hold up closer to your mouth.
Yeah, that's only for him.
Oh, you don't need to be
I think the only thing I would mention about, that Glenn hasn't mentioned, is that the street grades may be slightly different than it is today. I don't think effectively it'll bother anybody because we tried to match at the curb lines as closely as possible and as closely as we could. But instead of draining in both directions from the center of the road like a typical residential street may, with what you would call a crown in the center and draining to each curb line, it will be draining in one direction only across the entire road. And the reason we did that is that the existing road in both South Bend and Marguerite had sort of an atypical crown where it was off of the center, and on one side there was maybe 1% of slope and on the other maybe 6%. For continuity, we wanted just to make it a straight grade from one side to the other, and we felt like that was the best way to not mess with your driveways too much, not make one person have too flat of a driveway and one too steep based on what you're already experiencing. So I'm not saying it's going to be exactly the way it is today, but it's going to be pretty close. You shouldn't really notice much difference other than the roadway will slope in one direction instead of two directions. But we feel like that's a little better product in your neighborhood. So,
Jason, are there going to be any crosswalks on Southview or
I think
at Camden?
if you want to click through, Jeff, I think we've got a couple sheets, or I think we included it. Yeah, so I don't know if let's go back to a sheet once. Yeah, that other one's probably better. There will be a crosswalk added on it's Marguerite and Camden. So then it'll cross Camden and go over to the bike trail. So that'll be an added connection in the neighborhood. Otherwise, we're just reestablishing an existing connection there. If you want to go back one sheet, just so I can verify it. On the Southview Drive side, we are removing some crossings that go across Southview Drive because there's no receiving sidewalk ramp on the other side, so we're just taking it out. But I don't think that should be too big of an impact. I think the big impact on the sidewalk side of things is we're adding a connection over to the bike trail where we could, which is at Marguerite. So that's kind of a nice additional feature there. Yeah. So I don't know if I would add anything else. Like Glenn said, it's a total reconstruction, so we're replacing the sanitary storm and water main. The water main is undersized. We're bringing that up into current standard. The sanitary sewer had some offset joints and some intruding service lines, so we're replacing that to give you a better product. And the storm sewer is being replaced and rerouted actually on Marguerite. Instead of going through someone's side yard and over to 4th Street, we're rerouting it, sending it down to Camden. That's for, we think
where
for...
it shows on there?
It's going to be hard to see on here.
Between 717 and 719, there's a
Right
blue
here.
line.
There it is.
Are 717 and 719 here?
Marguerite, 717, 719? No.
Okay.
Well, the storm sewer
I'm 721.
passes through that side yard, and we're not going to replace it in that direction. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to send the new pipe down to Camden. So in a way, that's a benefit to the neighborhood. Then the storm sewer is going to share some street costs with you. So
I've got
What
another
about on
question.
South Bend?
on South Bend, the storm sewer has already been replaced. It drains back through the park area in the backyards, and that's already been replaced. So all we're doing, Nope, all we're doing there is just replacing the catch basin structure and manhole structure in the street. That's all we're doing there.
On South Bend, is that gonna be where it is now? Because it's right next to my driveway. And
Correct.
I get a lot of flooding.
Okay, that's good to know. We can talk about that a little bit afterwards, but we are planning to keep that in the same location. The one thing that will change is that there'll be a bigger intake structure there. So hopefully that'll help take the water a little better for you. Hopefully that helps in that way. But if you have some concerns, we can talk afterwards.
Down that
Say that
alley,
again?
On South Bend, the existing catch basin is.
Which side of the street do you-
Is that map inside out?
Oh, that's right. Okay,
So we're
Yes,
shifting
it's
it
upside
That's
down.
right.
75
Yeah.
feet.
that's right.
Because Camden should be on the other side.
The old, I forgot about that. The old catch basin was right here, and then there was one up over here. We are actually shifting it over here to be on that line where it drains ultimately. We did move it, so
So where is it gonna be located then? What house number?
What house number?
between 704 and 706, pretty
Yeah,
much
that's where
on
it
the
is.
property
That's where it
line.
is now. It doesn't drain well.
We can talk a little bit afterwards.
There's no drain right there. The drain is down between mine and my next neighbor over.
And then it all
Well,
runs
what's that
going to
net
her
big by my
driveway
driveway then, Rick? That always freezes up.
Yeah, the water collects at my place too, but the
Yeah.
drain is right by Trevor's place.
Okay.
Right off the edge of my driveway.
See, I think the street slopes too much now.
Yeah, 'cause Kevin used to always get out there and dig
Yeah.
it that way.
That's true. It might slope a lot by their place now.
It very well
does.
could,
That would be less.
right.
Thank goodness.
You watch it rain, it's just coming to our side.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, in some spots you're looking at like 6%, and we're gonna have a consistent roughly 2.5 to 2.75 going across. It's gonna be less and consistent.
now, I don't know if it's still there or not, but down that alley, I'm at 721, and down the alley between, it's kind of an alley, there used to be a big drainage hole there.
721, right here.
It's right behind, it would be right behind,
Okay, yeah, is that where that catch basin is? There is a catch basin in that backyard area. We're not touching that. That'll stay.
is it still working?
It will still work.
I wonder if it does now.
Do you have water collection issues back there? Is it pond?
Only when it's really bad, but yeah, it kind of wants to back up,
But it eventually goes away in the,
eventually,
yeah.
usually.
That's another reason why we aren't replacing our pipe and sending it that way to drain, is because that pipe network is a little undersized and we really didn't want to go through the hassle of fixing it. But that drain will be, it'll work, and it'll probably work maybe better than it had before. I don't know, I'm just gonna theorize that maybe it wasn't draining before because the street drainage was coming through and it could have been hindering
Well,
its
and
ability to go
like I
away.
said, I don't know how much of the street drainage goes to that area.
Well, in the future, there'll be none.
Okay.
In the back of my yard, Karen's yard, everything comes right there, because it's always a lake right there.
Okay,
So there's nothing draining the
your
lake.
yard
We're on
is
706
So,
South Bend.
706 South Bend.
And our back of our yards are where it all puddles up. There is a, like I say, there's a drainage on the edge of my driveway. And then there's one right across from Karen, I believe it is. There's another drainage.
There's one right here
across the
between
road.
709 and 707. Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, with this project, we're not touching the backyard area, but if you have specific concerns, we can talk about it afterwards.
Well, that red line through
But, yeah.
on the right should be on the left. Is that all utilities? Is that, I have a power line that goes right underneath my back steps.
Yeah, right here. This is definitely a load of utilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Okay. Okay, now.
Very
now,
near.
Back to the street thing. When you finish that off, is it possible to do a better job adjusting the manhole covers?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
like on Southview or Saratoga North, I tell you, it's about that deep, and you drive along with a pickup truck, and it just makes you mad.
yeah. It'll
Because
be.
it's such a bang, bang
It will be in the contract for them to adjust structures up to new height, yep,
Okay.
that's right.
And another thing, on Southview, you got puddles of water right in the middle of the street after it rains. Like there's no crown there, or it had subsidence or something there.
Which intersection? South
Huh?
Feet?
The whole dang street from 4th Street all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's something we'll have to pick up on another
They
project.
never-
When we do a mill and overlay in the future, we'll try to reinstate the crown there.
They,
think
they
they did
never,
once, but it never helped.
they never corrected it after they rebuilt the street.
Sure. Yeah, what we may have had was a settling of the utility there.
It got built in 2009.
I call them Lake Southviews. A bunch of them.
That was
Yeah,
where we left the
your
curb
car
and gutter in,
splashes you.
and, yeah.
Okay.
It splashes water on your car.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what Jeff is just alluding to here is that was one where we kind of left the curb and gutter in place and did a rehab and tried to match existing. We shouldn't have that issue in your neighborhood. We're redoing the whole thing. I don't anticipate any problems with your future drainage on these two streets. Do you have a question?
This is just curiosity, but how do you decide for the season what streets to do? Of all the streets in Marshall, how did you decide on South Bend and Marguerite? I mean,
Well,
I'm just
yeah,
curious.
yeah,
I know
no.
it sounds stupid,
It's a
but
good question.
I'm
We
just
do keep
curious.
a capital, do you mind, Glenn? Do you want to? We do keep a capital improvement plan. We have a list of roads that are on our agenda, and it's usually both driven by the road condition and also almost more importantly, the utility condition. So the water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer condition. So we always, Bob's wastewater department, they televise these pipe systems for us, the storm sewer and the wastewater, so we know what kind of conditions we have there. And we work with MMU to identify areas where they have undersized water main or old iron pipe that's kind of giving them some fits or they think may give them some problems in the near future. So in your neighborhood, you've got undersized and aging iron pipe, and the iron pipe in our area doesn't always fare well. The soils sort of attack the metal and it causes them to break down. So
Currently, both streets have 4-inch water main, which by Department of Health standards, we can't put that in anymore. It has to be at least 6-inch to meet current fire flow ratings.
yeah.
And we'll also be adding a few hydrants to this project that's a little anemic in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
How
that's
many
a
fire hydrants you
really,
have?
that's a really good point. We will be adding hydrants to help with future fire protection when and if necessary. So, but then, yeah, go ahead.
Will you be adding any more street lights to the street? There's only one street light on that whole street.
We don't have any plans to at this point in time, but we can definitely discuss with MMU's electric folks to see if there's a deficiency in the area.
There's only one street light on the whole street.
On Marguerite, yeah,
Mm.
it's dark, it's dark.
Okay,
Okay, is there one on each corner now?
at the intersections?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, we will take this plan to MNU and discuss with them. We'll just indicate that the residents have said it's kind of dark, okay? And they do a lighting layout to make sure that it's adequate lighting. Now, that's not an opinion, and they get the decision because they pay for it.
But they do have a
But-
standard that they
Yeah,
like
they have
to
a
meet.
standard. And we have a lot of older neighborhoods that probably haven't been really looked at for adequate lighting. So that's something that we will take to them to discuss.
This is just a question too. Our street, Marguerite, has the tree lawn with all mature trees. Are we going to lose our tree lawn and all of our trees?
Jeff, did we have any trees that were,
No trees at this time.
yeah, we don't anticipate
Okay.
any problems.
No
there.
trees removed.
No, but
No trees.
what's exposed are going to do something to trees, right?
We don't anticipate any problems at this time, but I suppose there's always an opportunity or a chance when we're doing a complete reconstruct that we damage tree roots, and we try not to do that, but
And if the tree dies, who stands at it?
if you lose a tree, we usually, I think historically, have worked with the property owners to replace the tree.
Okay, I'm kind of a tree guy. Okay, so I like trees. I like them on the boulevard. Our policy is that we don't install any trees on the boulevard anymore. The problem is all the utilities that are on the right-of-way. So if we happen to either take a tree down, or if we damage the tree and it dies within the warranty period, let's say 1 year, you know, sometimes those big old trees will take 10 years to die. But let's say they get broken down and we replace them. We will ask you where you want one on your property. Okay, and it'll be a 1-inch caliper minimum, maybe a little bigger. Okay, and we'll ask you where you would like one, and then we'll have one moved in. So we probably won't be replacing any tree that's removed on the right of way, unfortunately. It's just a problem. And we don't want any trees established within 5 feet of your concrete. So if you've got a concrete driveway, that little tree that's this big around is going to be this big around someday, and the roots are going to push your sidewalk up or push the driveway up, or it's just a longer term problem. But we love trees. We're a green city. So if there is something like that, get a hold of us. Yes.
I got a question on the sidewalks, South Bend. What are the chances of eliminating a sidewalk completely on your street?
I'll say little or none.
None?
The city policy is sidewalks on both sides of every street, Reconstruction Street. Now, council has varied from that on certain projects at certain locations when there is connectivity that they're tying into. But the policy is, for us, is sidewalks on both sides. And we install them 5 feet wide. Sometimes they've been kind of narrow in some district, sometimes non-existent. We've had some blocks, I'll take the Saratoga Street project, where we have sidewalks on both sides except for about 4 blocks on the south side from the church back to about Greeley. And that, it will be, the plan is to newly construct that connection. Okay. In that case, we have a bike path on one side. So on the school side and the YMCA side and the library side, that will be a 8 to 10 foot wide sidewalk. There'll be a bike path as well, off street. Yeah.
So what's the need for a sidewalk on both sides of the street?
Well, there's been a big change.
It's always been that way since day one, I know. But why are we still doing it that way?
No, okay. The reason is because there's several things about health and safety for everyone, not just the little kids. One of the reasons, of course, is when you have kids from 3 to 7, 8 years old, generally you don't want them with their trikes and bikes out in the street. So and the argument of that is, aren't bikes supposed to be off the sidewalk if it's not a bike path? Yes, they are, but you know, we still try to have some common sense that we don't want the 3-year-old in the street, and they do need to learn how to ride their bike, and younger families need to have that. Second is, for old guys like me, I'm supposed to, according to my doctor, get out and have some exercise. And they don't like me walking in the street, especially when it's kind of a fast speed road and things like that. So it is for the old people, the young people, and the people in between. It's for walking to see your neighbor. I know for some period of time, across the street from you, there's an area that has no sidewalks whatsoever. And the the garages are built in the front of the house, so you could come in and drive into your garage and shut your door so nobody ever sees you, and you don't want to talk to anybody. I'm home and I don't want to see anybody. That's kind of changed a little bit in that we've had more block parties in the last 5 years than I had in the previous 10 years combined, probably. People are getting back to wanting to do stuff with their neighbors, and that's why garages now are being set back a little bit, and sidewalks are being installed. I won't say whether or not they should be everywhere, but that's our policy, and we like them.
But not for the middle now.
See, well, do you have, that's something I should bring up. Do you have, is it a rural delivery?
No, it's on.
No, they just walk across.
It's on the house. Okay, so they walk the sidewalks to deliver your mail?
They walk across the
Okay. That's one thing I was going to mention. If you do have mailboxes, we have special conditions for mailboxes. But so I don't have to talk about that anymore. However, I need to talk about garbage collection. Garbage collection during construction can be a problem. And what we want you to do is put your garbage out the same location and the same time you always do. As long as you have it on time now. Okay, and the contractor will be responsible for moving your garbage can. We'll put addresses on them to a certain location that the garbage truck will pick up, and he will return your garbage can to where you normally place it. Okay? Now, to where you normally place it, it's going to be up on your property in your driveway, not down at the curb line because the curb's gone. Okay, but our contractor is responsible for doing that.
Say, Glenn?
Yes.
Just make sure to put a piece of tape or Sharpie marker and put your house number on your garbage can. One other thing.
Well,
And
So right now.
Don't expect that if you put your garbage can out at 10 o'clock at night, that they're gonna pick it up that night and get it down there. You know, before they go home, try and set it up.
Would that be garbage and recycling?
yes.
But our garbage goes out on Sunday night, so is that gonna make a difference?
Yes, it will. Is all of yours Sunday night?
Yep.
Okay. We will need to make arrangements for that. Okay? We will need to make arrangements. We don't want to have you trudging down through the mud in the street down to the end of the street to do that. So we will that's why we're here. Okay? To get that information.
I have a question about the timeline on the sanitary sewer for my house. I suspect it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Do I have to guess at that and arrange for that in advance, or when you're digging up the street, you can see from the end that's there in the street that it's all going to, and we can ask for it at that time? Is that possible?
That is possible. And as a matter of fact, if you don't contact us to do that, and we find that it is either Cast or Orangeburg, we will contact you. Okay? So if the inspectors see when they're digging that generally they'll go through with the main and then connect up the sewer service line. If it's either of those, or clay, if it's any of those other than plastic, we will contact you and say, we're going to replace it to here, and we'll replace it no matter what, unless it's plastic now, up to the property line. Okay. Garbage service.
Lots of cars
Yeah.
in our neighborhood.
Parking.
Parking, you won't be able to get to your driveway when they're in front of your house, digging through. Generally, weather dependent, if we, you know, I said this at a previous project many years ago, and as soon as they opened up the street with the utilities, we got 8 inches of rain. It was, we got stuck with the big front end loader in the street. So I'm just saying, if it's normal, we will try to get you into your driveway with a gravel ramp as soon as possible. Is that the proper way to put it?
And when we
Each
can't,
time.
when we can't use our driveway, then we'll have to either park on Southview or
Yes.
Camden Drive.
And if there's any area in that area that has no parking restrictions during the summer, are there any as far as you know? Do you guys have parking restrictions on Camden or anything like that? Okay. I was gonna say, if there was, we would probably put a bag over those signs to allow parking during the construction time. Also, do you know anyone that didn't make it here tonight that might be handicapped? Okay, and we need to know their name and address so that we can contact with them to make special arrangements for them to get in and out. Okay, that might entail a boardwalk, it might entail some other things that they can use, but that's real important to us, that sometimes they don't like to ask for things, too.
And that makes a difference for me too.
Yeah.
Because my husband is.
Don't think it's bothersome for us. Make sure that we understand what your situation is so that we can do the best job we can. We'll direct the contractor to make special arrangements if in fact they are truly handicapped. Kim?
Going back to the parking thing for just a minute, there's gonna be a time when you will not be in your driveways. There's gonna be 3 quarters in front of everybody's house. There's gonna be sidewalk, curb and gutter, and your driveway. After the last pour, which whatever's last, it's gonna be 7 days before you can get in. There will be, so it's gonna be probably 2 weeks when we're pouring concrete that you will not be parking in your driveway.
You'll be able to park on the street in front of the house, won't you?
Probably not. Not if you got a curb machine and concrete trucks and stuff like that. At night, probably.
Yeah.
But not during the day.
That leads me to another, we're campers.
Yeah.
And you know, we load
Yeah.
like a Thursday
Mhm.
and take off on Friday, and that probably won't be possible, or what do you think?
Right. Typically, we have the camper parked on the side street, and you have to get your stuff to it. So, or, you know, we always suggest taking the whole month off, but.
So you're saying it's gonna be a month project and it's gonna be
Oh, no,
done?
it's gonna be much longer than that. So what's the time frame?
Depends on the contractor.
We don't have a time frame at this point specifically.
Okay. I'm gonna say it's going to be 3 months. Okay, 3 months of, you know, in and out and
For
things
both
like
of them
that.
combined.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
yeah, yes,
Okay, some of us have more than one vehicle.
yeah.
Is it possible for the city to contact CAR and see if it's okay if we park our vehicles in the old county fair parking lot
Yes.
during that time?
There has been no problem with that concept, and we will contact them and ask them if that's okay.
Park it there and get a ticket because it's not supposed to be
No,
there.
no, we can contact him. He's been real good for working with
Because
things.
Camden isn't very wide.
No,
Parking vehicles.
that's what I was wondering, if it's no parking on one side now.
Yeah, no, it's not very wide. And if
Okay.
I live in the middle of the street, I don't want to have
Right.
3 vehicles or 2 vehicles down there and. Yeah, right
So
in front of
that's a
me.
comment, somebody take that down.
Is there gonna be a completion date for the contractor?
Yes, there will be. There will be a completion, yeah, there will be in the contract now.
For the first layer of asphalt, up to that?
Yeah, yeah. And that is variable dependent upon, like that one project that we had that got so much rain. It got extended a few times. But we like to put together a project time with a completion date, and we like to give them what we call some extra time within that, so that we're not pushing him. He doesn't have to be there every day, all week long, with no rain, conditions. So we like to make it long enough so that we're reasonable. And if he's working every day whenever he can, and if there are weather extensions, we are sympathetic to giving them extensions of time, but only if they're there working. We've had some contractors that have another job somewhere else.
Typical.
And go somewhere else to do it, and then we sit for a couple weeks. We wouldn't give them an extension for being gone for a couple weeks. Yeah, we have a penalty of, it depends upon the contract amount, $500 to $1,000 a day, something like that usually. Okay, yes?
Gas lines in the street, or are they someplace else?
They are, I believe they're between the curb and the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and that's a good point. Dwayne from the gas company, we had a meeting yesterday, he's talking about replacing the gas on both of these streets, probably ahead of us coming in. They'd like to get in and they've got, what is it, plastic in there? And they go to
PVC and they'll put a poly in.
They put a poly in that's tougher, and they like to come in ahead, lower if they're raised, whatever they gotta do. And he's just getting it put together now though, so.
But we will work with them on showing him the elevations. On the bottom part of the picture, those are the proposed elevations for all the utilities. So the gas company can come in and see where we're going in, and try not to run their gas line right through a catch basin, for instance.
What about the usage of the sewer line and the water and things like that? How long would a resident be without those?
Jeff, do you want to handle the water part?
For water on Southview, we're probably gonna have to temporary water that, meaning there'll be basically temporary water lines across the ground hooked up to your spigot. On Marguerite, we think we can get by keeping the old one live, and it'll be just like normal. But there's gonna be periods where we gotta kill the water to tie in the new lines. So we try to keep those outages to 4 hours.
And we'll know well ahead of time?
Yeah, the contractor, on all our contracts, we got a 24-hour notice on that. So you should know the day before. If you're not home, they hang a tag to let you know. But we try to keep them to 4 hours or less, the outages up for the water.
Bob, sewer?
Sanitary sewer shouldn't be an issue at all. They usually run those live as they're installing them, and just make the cut-ins. So that won't be an issue.
Now I want to specifically read, and these are on the backs of your sheets, and I know you can take them home with you, but I want to make sure that the special assessment process is, at least you're notified, and whether it's understood, that's another story. But we'll start with water, and we've gone through most of this, but we want to reiterate these items. Water main and water service line replacements up to and including the curb stops are paid for by MMU. So, do we know if everyone's got a curb stop that's operational now?
I doubt it.
Okay. So sometimes those darn curb stops are right in the middle of the driveway. And there's not a lot we can do about that unless you're going to be relocating the water service line from that location all the way into the house. But if in fact you are, for any reason, we don't want them in the sidewalk or in the driveway, if possible. Okay? So have we located any that are in the driveway? Sometimes they're in the sidewalk. Okay.
One in the driveway and a few on the sidewalk, yes.
We'd like to touch base with whoever has that, so Jeff, is there any other, can we come through that and then curb, attach outside? Right. And if you give them the address, we could probably show you where it is. Sanitary sewer main replacements are paid for by the wastewater fund. That's the main. Storm sewer main and catch basin replacements are paid for by the surface water management utility fund. Street replacement costs associated with the replacement of the water main, sewer main, and storm sewer mains are paid for by the respective utilities. So that's that street section right above them. ADA required sidewalk ramps at the intersections are paid for 100% by the city. So if you go to where Jason showed the crosswalk locations, and we put in those, they're called truncated domes. They're cast iron. They're little plates that are put in. They're the only type that we're allowed to use anymore. If you go around town, you can see deteriorated concrete ones. You can see lines on you can see plastic, you can see stainless steel, you can see exposed aggregate concrete. You can see the only thing that's allowed now by the federal is cast iron concrete, cast iron truncated domes. Those are paid for by the city. The remaining street replacement costs, including public sidewalks, are split 50-50 between the property owners and the city. The private sanitary sewer connections, including the Y and the service line to the property line, are the responsibility of each property owner attached to the sewer main. And that will be included in your special assessment. You don't have to pay for it up front when the contractor is doing it. You can pay for it at the end of the project when you've gotten your notice for the hearing, and that process is done. The removal and/or replacement or additional area of the individual driveways are the responsibility of the property owner, because each driveway is different in size and serves only that property. So if you have a triple car garage versus a single car garage, and you've got a wide driveway or a narrow driveway, that's not spread out to the rest of the residents. It's that property owner. The maximum street assessment for residential properties will be $5,500 for assessments certified in 2018. This maximum does not include the individual improvements for the sanitary sewer service line, removal and replacement of private driveways, sidewalk walk-ups, or new additional driveway improvements within the city right-of-way. Assessments are proposed to be payable in equal annual principal installments, historically extending over a period of 8 to 10 years. And in this case, the proposal will be for 8 years. The first of the installment to be payable before the first Monday in January of 2019, and shall bear interest to be determined from October 15, 2018. And that, we'll get to that later. To the first installment is added the interest on the entire assessment from October 15th of 18 through December 31 of 19. So if you place the assessment on your taxes, the interest rate for the whole following year is calculated and put on your assessment. And then to each subsequent installment when due shall be added the interest for 1 year on all unpaid installments. The administrative policy for setting the assessment interest rates will be calculated as in prior years, using the most recent bond interest rate and adding 2% for administrative costs. And then it gives you an example. And so it's just telling you we can't determine that at this time, but it will be determined before you get an assessment notice. For 2018 projects, the owner of any property may at any time prior to certification of the assessment to the county auditor pay the entire assessment on the property with interest accrued from October 15th to the date of payment. That means if you pay it all before October 15th, there's zero interest. In all succeeding years, you may pay the entire amount of the assessment before October 15th, or interest will be charged through December 31st of the next year. The rate to partially prepay the assessment according to the ordinance is available. Excuse me. That's all of them, and if anyone has any specific questions now, we'd certainly take them, but you have another whole process of public hearings and discussion of assessments. Yeah.
What is your hope for start date on this project?
Hopeful
So-
start date,
I mean,
Early May.
well, that gives us something at
yeah,
least.
early May.
Just, it all depends on the contractor and who we hire and when they can come in.
But it's not gonna be next month.
No,
No, we hope to bid it in April.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yes,
How much value, how much value does all this work add to your property?
well, we're saying up to $5,500. Now, it is not used, that's a good question. It is not used by the assessing department in taking this assessment and tacking it onto your current value. Okay? It's kind of two separate types of operations. Your assessed value will be modified according to sales of similar properties in your area, not in accordance with special assessment or projects. Okay, we get that question kind of regularly. That will this be tacked on to my value of my home? And it will not. You completely separate. You may get an increase or decrease in the assessed value, but that's only based upon local sales.
Does it add anything to the value when you sell your home, the fact that you've made improvements?
I will say yes. If I was going down the street where the street was completely cracked up, and when they started looking into your property and they say, sewer line from 1957, I know that sooner or later that's going to be a problem. So if I'm a smart buyer, I'm going to say, looks to me like I'm going to have to negotiate a price with you because some of this stuff is pretty darn old. And where's that curb stop anyway? I don't know where that curb stop is. So those are the kinds of things. Does it add value? I believe it does. The street being completely cracked and broken up versus a new paved street with catch basins that can take the water. No, I should say that too. The water that might be ponding on your street today or last summer. We design our system for 2-year.
2-year rain event typically in a neighborhood like this.
A 2-year rain event. We get a lot of rains that are more than a 2-year rain event. You could have a 10-year rain event, a 5-year rain event, a 25-year rain event, a 100-year rain event. That storm sewer system will not take that kind of water. It will take it eventually, but gee whiz, we just got a brand new street, now there's water sitting out there after that 4-inch rain we had yesterday. Yep, it will be. That's what our design standard is. If you design to a 100-year event, we'd have way too big a pipe underground. Okay, so we even indicate that our design of stormwater runoff uses the street for storage until it's gone. So it can't get into the pipes fast enough or out the other end. So the street is the storage place for the water until it can get out. 2-year event, and that's about a 4-inch rain? 2.5-inch rain?
2.5 to 3.
2.5-inch rain
Yeah.
in a 24-hour period. So it's not a big rain. I mean, it's a good rain, but it's not a huge rain. That's what it's designed
I just want
Yes.
to see if I understand this.
Okay.
So if we wanted to redo our driveway, we could have your guys do it while they are there, or we could hook up with our contractor and have him do it.
for. That's correct.
Okay.
But
They
if
wouldn't
you,
have to correlate their time.
right,
Okay.
Yep.
Only to the right of way line.
yep, we do
No, but I
the,
mean, if we were gonna
if
stay on
they-
the cost, and as long as we had the mess,
yep,
if
Yep.
we wanted to do the whole thing,
yep.
we would stay on the cost, but
Yep.
you guys would do it.
We could do it up to the right of way. And our contractor could do it if he agreed to go all the way
Right.
and bill you from the right of way
From the
to
right
the
of way
house.
to the
Yes,
right
absolutely.
You would have to talk to him.
Yep,
You would have to talk to him.
yeah.
about that.
If we know that you're interested in doing that, we can
Right.
tell them. But it would be our, we wouldn't inspect it, we wouldn't do anything like that. Anything else? So, if any of you want to give us your name and address to follow up with you, or if you know right now that you do or don't want a walk up from the sidewalk to the curb, you can let us know. And you can stop by anytime. You can give us, any of us, a call anytime, but do it before the plans are done. We can modify it a little bit when our contractors are already out there, but we like to know as much as possible what you want to do. Okay?
As of today, if you do have a 3-foot catwalk going from the curb to the sidewalk, it's in the plans to get replaced. All the sidewalk that's there today is going to be replaced under the project. But if you know you don't want it, we can sure take it out because that is 100% your cost.
Or if you want it wider, or you want your driveway wider, you should let us know that as well, because like Jeff mentioned, we have it in the plan to be replaced fairly closely to as is. I mean, it'll be to current city standard, but about the same size. So if you need it wider, let us know
And they'll be 6 inches thick
on the driveways.
on the driveways. You might have a 4-inch, but all of our driveways go in at 6 inches thick.
Say, Glenn. As of right now on the plans, we show a new hydrant on South Bend going in between 702 and 704.
Oh my God, you got all the garbage at your house.
On Marguerite, the corner of Southview and Marguerite, I believe that's 408 Southview. One in between 708 and 710 Southview.
No, Marguerite.
Or, yeah, Marguerite. And then one on the corner, 700 Marguerite and South Bend. If you have heartburn about that, you might want to let us know and give us an address of a neighbor you don't like that who's not here. But that's where they're initially planned right now. And we just kind of go off of footage.
Yeah, fire hydrant, yep.
You don't want right in front of your house, do you, Mom?
Where would you put that, right on the corner?
Right on the corner, on the street side of the sidewalk. Between the curb and the sidewalks is where we like them.
If it's way over there, I guess.
Would you repeat the south
They put
bend?
the sidewalk there.
Where would the location?
702 and 704.
702 and 704, okay, that'd be on the other side of the street.
We put them on the property lines, we're trying to get them close to the property line.
But they'll be in the boulevard.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So we are 710 and 708. So that would be right by that light pole. Is that what you're saying, Eric?
That's the only light on the street.
That's where the only light is on the street there. If you're gonna put a hydrant there.
That's where it's initially planned to go.
Yeah, a few feet away.
So when the fire department comes, they can see where it is.
Good idea.
Oh, then the
Okay,
hydrant on
so-
the other side of the street by the
Hey,
the
Glenn.
light
Yeah.
pole.
Sprinkler systems, move over.
Yeah, do any of you have a nice enough yard to have sprinkler systems in? Sprinklers are a two-edged sword. One is, we love it when you do it to take care of the boulevard. And we hate it when you do it because our contractor, they're never marked and he comes through and he rips them all out. He doesn't even know they're there. Because we locate all of the public utilities, but we never know when you guys have it. So if anybody, including your neighbors, has a sprinkler system, let us know. You're responsible for relocating them. It's a private installation on public property, but we do like it when they take care of their yards too.
We have a tree that's jacking up the sidewalk.
Mhm.
What, I hate to lose the tree.
Mhm.
What do you, when you pour a new sidewalk, you want a little hill there, can you leave a
What's your address?
703 South Bend?
Okay, let's take a look at his tree.
There's more than one tree like that out there. There's a few very large trees that are pushing up sidewalks.
Yes.
There have been conditions where we cut the root off.
Cut one road off.
Hey, a tree will fall over. Big ones.
It normally does not,
Oh,
okay? We don't like to tear out a bunch of roots,
yeah.
but if you've got one root that's creating a problem for that, when they come in and they excavate for that sidewalk, if it's so bad, if it's close to the surface, it's gonna be found when they tear out that sidewalk.
Yeah.
So generally, they'll probably take a saw and cut that root off. Those are all mature trees in your neighborhood. They're all big trees.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to that tree on the boulevard thing.
Yeah.
Out there in that new Saratoga, how many of those little trees are out there?
A lot. And they're on the right of way. And they're between the bike path and the curb and gutter.
Right.
It was a requirement of the federal state funding to put those trees in.
So it can be in there, but we can't put trees on our boulevard.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. We've actually relocated some of the trees already.
They're too close together.
They're too close together, they block signs, so we'd like to place them in a more attractive spot than right there, but it was a requirement of landscaping you had to have X number of dollars and trees for those projects. Sometimes there's common sense and sometimes there's funding.
A number to contact you with a response to the sidewalk approaches and the driveway lighting and.
537-6773. That's the Public Works office.
And we ask for,
You can just,
leave a
they'll be, you can just say where you're from and what your comment is, and they will distribute it to the right person.
Okay.
If you want to talk to any one of us specifically, either come in and see us or ask for us by name. But any comment that you give to our office, these guys will get. And I really do appreciate all of you coming to this meeting. Public informational meetings are the most important public meetings we have on projects because you don't have to go to a public hearing and stand in front of the council and try to discuss this back and forth with us. So you will be invited to other meetings at the council, but we really appreciate this interaction. So we can understand where you're coming from too. So.
Is
Thanks
that
for
going to
coming.
be any wider or any narrower than it is right now?
It will
About
not.
the same width,
It's, how wide is it?
37.
It's not really wide when it comes to our other standards, but the standards too change regularly, and the standards are reducing in size rather than widening streets. For a while, they wanted wide streets, 44 feet, 40 feet, 48 feet, and now it's narrower because it costs so darn much. You know, if you add, in your case, 7 more feet of street, that's 7 more street of initial cost. It's 7 more feet of snow plowing to do. It's 7 more feet of patching and crack sealing and seal coating to do over the next 30 years, 50 years. So they're trying to get things, you know, adequate for people to drive on. And in some places we have bike paths on the street and things like that. So it's more than just traffic. But they're trying to make that as small as possible and still provide service.
Will there be minutes sent out regarding the March 13th meeting if we can't make it?
The March 13th meeting will be recorded and on the website. And Alex, maybe if you could have a comment on we don't need minutes anymore because you can watch it live.
Right. So the reason that we're here tonight, I'm with Studio One TV. We're recording this for the folks who aren't able to be here. So this will actually play back on cable this weekend and over the next 3 or 4 weekends as well on the Studio One TV channel. And if you're not, do you have Vast or Charter? Charter is channel 180 and Vast is channel 17. And I was just going to look up at what time it airs this weekend and I couldn't get there fast enough. But it does air this weekend, and if you are not a cable subscriber, it will be on our website too. If you just look up marshallstudio1tv.com, you'll be able to find it.
And the 13th meeting will be on that same.
Yep. Yep. All our city council meetings are broadcast live on Studio One as well. So you can watch it live as it happens, or you can watch that on playback. It plays back about 4 times a week.
One more question.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, I'm glad that this infrastructure, the sewer and the water lines are going to get replaced, because in the middle of winter, they're so old the water lines could break and it would be nasty. And
That's exactly right.
I think they've gone just about as long as they can.
Anything else from you guys? Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming.